everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Kenzie, and today I am going to be doing a little bit of a Q&A. So since my channel isn't super large, I figured I wouldn't get a ton of responses if I asked people for questions. So I came across this book right here, and it is called The Tribe of Mentors. I started reading this book, I don't remember, but anyway, I love the concept. So the author goes around to a bunch of mentors in the business world and asks them these 11 questions, I believe, and he asks all of these people the same exact questions, and then he compiled their answers into this giant book. So I thought that was so clever, and then he pulls out specific quotes that some of these people had, and it's just really interesting. There's some great responses and a lot of insightful comments in this book, but I thought, hey, I could just ask the questions to myself. Okay, so the first question that he asks is, what is the book or books that you've given most as a gift and why? And I thought about this before I started recording, and I was thinking, what book do I give? I feel like I give a lot of books, but I can't think of what it is. And then it hit me, I wrote a book, and so I do give that book as a gift to people or just to send to see what people think of it. I have it somewhere. Here it is. I've talked about it in a few other videos, but it's about the time of singleness before marriage and the importance of preparing yourself for your future vocation, especially when it comes to marriage. Question number 2. What purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months or in recent memory? And this one is tough because I haven't been purchasing many things, but I would say either my tripod that attaches to my cell phone. I just think it's really cool that the attachment is there so you can put it onto a camera or your cell phone, and it's great for recording or taking pictures, and so I've gotten a lot of use out of it, as well as my ring light, which I am using now, so that way I can film some videos for YouTube at night. So those are two big ones. In addition to that, we just got a printer, and we didn't have one for a little while, and I didn't realize how much I liked to print stuff, and especially being a graphic design major, I used to print things all the time, and then when we went without one, I would just handwrite things that needed to be written on a piece of paper where I normally would have just typed them. And so we finally bit the bullet and just bought another printer, and we're so happy with it. We've been getting a lot of use out of it. Question number 3. How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours? I like that term, favorite failure. It's so true. There's so many things you may consider to be a failure, but without that failure, we wouldn't learn, we wouldn't grow, and we couldn't launch ourselves forward, moving on. And so for me, a favorite failure, I feel like I fail all the time at so many things, but I guess, okay, I have 2 favorite failures. First favorite failure would be every relationship with somebody that didn't work leading up to meeting my husband, because without those failures, I wouldn't have become the person that I am or been ready to meet him when I did, how I did, and be fully ready to marry him and to love him well. So I would definitely say that was a good failure. And then in terms of more of a recent failure, I would say, I don't know, I guess with Vlent, where that was a total failure. I talked about it a few times on YouTube here, but without that, I mean, that happening to me where basically I was going to vlog every day and start my YouTube channel last Lent, and it was a total fail. I did it like 2 or 3 times, and what it taught me was that I needed to persevere even when things weren't easy and didn't go my way, and I just needed to take the steps to get to my goal, which was to be consistent, or at least fairly consistent, here on YouTube. And I eventually overcame, and I stuck with the summer book club that Heather from A Catholic Mom's Life started. So with that, I was able to stay pretty consistent here, and I have been loving this YouTube journey so far. I know my channel is still small and everything, but just in this last little bit of time, I've connected with so many amazing people who have changed and transformed my life spiritually, especially in many ways. And so that failure definitely brought about a much greater good. Number 4, if you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, getting a message out to millions or billions, what would it say and why? It would be, keep moving forward. That's just something I like to say to myself a lot, because when we get caught up in something and you want to persevere, you keep moving forward. And plus you're driving, so it would kind of apply if you're driving and you're tired or something, and then you see, oh, keep moving forward. I gotta get to my destination. Or I would just put, Jesus loves you. Just something, a quick word of affirmation that can make people happy. Or, yeah, probably Jesus loves you. Number 5, what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? Could be an investment of money, time, energy, or something else. Does my marriage count as an investment? I guess I don't really think of my marriage or Mario as an investment, but it was certainly the best decision I ever made. In terms of like risking something, investment. Now, I don't know if this really counts, but I did exceptionally well on my fake mock stock market game when I was in high school during the recession giant stock market crash time. I like made all this money on my faux game, but it wasn't real money. So is that truly the best investment? But it was pretty good for the game. What is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love? An unusual habit. Oh, I thought of something, and I was thinking about this the other day. It's super random, but before I go to a fancy event like a wedding, or like before I went to dances growing up, and I know that I'm going to eat when I'm there, but I want to eat something before I go, what I usually end up eating is one of 2 things. Either a bowl of applesauce with cut up little square cubes of cheddar cheese inside of it. I don't know why, I've just always done that. Or I eat Annie's, what are they called? Bunny-O's. They're like SpaghettiOs, but they're by the brand Annie's, and they're shaped like bunnies. And I will eat those with grated cheddar cheese on them. Super random. I don't know why, but that's like my go-to if I'm doing something where I'm gonna eat, but I want to eat something beforehand, and it's kind of a bigger event, I will eat that. Number 7, in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life? I would say, I guess just in general, being married to Mario, he's such a persistent person who finds solutions. That's the biggest thing that I've learned from being married to him, is that when you come across obstacles and difficult challenges, even if they're ginormous, there's always a solution, and there's always a way that things are going to get better. It may take some time, but it also, and most importantly, takes a little bit of effort on our part, and it takes action, and it's just always about doing the next right thing, the next step to keep moving forward. And so I guess that's the biggest lesson that I've learned from him, and in general, is just that if there's anything you want in life, something you want to do, or just getting through the day, you just have to take the next action step. And sometimes those little action steps are very irritating and you don't want to take them, or you're tired, but just you do that little thing, you'll never move forward unless you just take one step at a time. Number 8, what advice would you give to a smart, driven college student about to enter the real world? What advice should they ignore? This is a good one. Let's see. So, smart, driven college student. about to enter the real world, I would say start off by finding a great group of friends or a great community, particularly a faith-based community in your church, or maybe it's a neighboring church with young people your same age. Just find a group of people. It's better if they're around your age, but if you can't find a group of people your age, it could be varying ages, but just something to get involved in that's tied to your parish, because life gets crazy. The outside world has so many things going on, so it's nice to find a group of people who you can connect with, who are grounded in their faith, who can encourage you and motivate you when things get difficult, and that you can be around, who are inspiring, uplifting, and just trying to grow in their faith and love for Jesus. So I would definitely say find that solid group of people. I guess advice to ignore would be that you need to get your career figured out and your house figured out and this and that figured out before you have kids. I guess to me, I feel like if you wait for the most ideal time to get married and have kids, it'll probably never happen, because there's really no ideal time. I mean, obviously you want yourself to be emotionally ready for somebody to come into your life and for your spouse, but that's more of a spiritual thing, and not so much these tangible objects. I think a lot of people think that they have to have a nice car, this solid, amazing career, and all these things need to fall into place. But by the time that happens, you're years down the road, and I know a lot of women my age, actually older than me usually, but now I'm starting to meet some people my age who just long for children, and they're already married, but their spouse wants to wait for X, Y, and Z to happen first, and one spouse is just wanting to have children, the other one is like, yeah, we'll get there someday. And that clash is very difficult for people. And so I'm just very blessed that my family was always very supportive of me wanting to be a wife and mother, and they couldn't be more happy that I found my husband when I did, how I did, and the person who he is, and that he is like-minded, and that he is open to life and wants children and things the same way I do. And although when we first got married, there were a lot of things we'd probably do differently in terms of like where we were at financially. Mario had just started a big giant business venture, and it was just such a grand new thing that required a lot of time and energy, but it was right when we were getting married, and then we were totally renovating our house, and so it was just a lot of stuff all at once. And so you look back and you see things like that you think like, wow, that was a lot to do, or maybe we should have, not done this and that at that time. But if we hadn't, we would have probably never gotten married, because there would have never been an ideal, perfect time ever. You end up making things work, especially when it comes to kids. You find your place, you find your rhythm and groove with it, and it's just a huge blessing. Number 9, what are bad recommendations you hear in your profession or area of expertise? So my profession is graphic design. I am a graphic designer, and this is a business book. But also, I guess, in my area of expertise, I'd say being like wife, mother, stepmother, that type of thing. I hear a lot of bad recommendations. I think the number one thing is that like you have to wait a long time to have additional children. I know a lot of people were really rude to me when I was pregnant with my second son, and they're both 14 months apart. So that was something that I think was a bad recommendation, because ever since Gio has been born and arrived in the world the last 3 months, just life has been amazing, and it's so cool to see my older son interact with him and our 9-year-old. So I would definitely say that anything with like not having kids, I would say is a bad recommendation. Not saying like you have to go and have 1,000 kids, but I just feel like the world is so anti-having kids and anti-family right now that there's a lot of bad recommendations when it comes to family planning and family life. Number 10, in the last 5 years, What have you become better at saying no to? Distractions, invitations, etc. What new realizations or approaches have helped, or any other tips? Let's see, saying no is definitely difficult. I'm trying to get better at it. Sometimes, unfortunately, my tendency is to ignore the situation or the person or their question instead of just saying no. And so I have gotten better at just flat out having to say it and be blunt and just deal with that little pain of having to tell somebody no, so that I can avoid weeks and weeks of avoiding somebody. I'm avoiding the avoidance now that I say that out loud. But yeah, so I've just gotten better at being confident in my opinions. I think for so long I lacked confidence in the things I believed in, and now I've just realized, because I followed my gut, I've been led to so many beautiful things and blessings in my life that I've established a greater confidence for my opinions, because I've seen the fruits of them and I've seen the benefits of following church teachings and doing the right thing and this and that. So I've gotten more confident in saying no to things that I don't think are good, or maybe an event I don't want to go to. I just say I can't do that, or we have to do that at a different time. And generally people are pretty understanding and cooperative with that. And the final question, number 11. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, which is all the time for me, or have lost your focus temporarily, what do you do? This is an excellent question for me right now, because I feel like as of late I have totally lost good focusing abilities. I've just had so much on my mind and I'm just all over the place, I feel. And I've taken on a lot of new projects, maybe that's why, but what do I do normally though? When I feel overwhelmed, I tend to work out and exercise a little bit more just to release that tension inside of me. I try to make sure I get a good amount of sleep. Drinking tea calms me. I like green tea, pretty simple there. And aside from that, I like to watch motivating videos and listen to motivating podcasts. Now that I'm married, I love to just spend some time with my husband without our phones, just with him, even if we're just talking on the couch, just totally hanging out. That always seems to calm me. He has such a calming presence and personality, my husband. So I love being around him when I'm stressed. I will ask him for advice too. He is great at directing me to a good place advice-wise, and that's one amazing thing about marriage. So that's all of the questions from the book Tribe of Mentors. Again, this is a business book, not really anything religious or mom related, but I thought it was really cool to hear the same questions being answered by a number of different influential people. And so the concept is amazing, and there's some great insight in this book. And I hope you had fun hearing my answers too. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and thank you as always for watching.